Why would the United States, a global superpower, harbor resentment toward its peaceful northern neighbor? Isn't Canada supposed to be America's best friend, the polite partner, the one who always plays nice? Think again. Beneath the surface of this friendly alliance lies a web of rivalry, economic friction, and deep-seated frustrations that few dare to speak about publicly. Today, we peel back the curtain and dive into the heart of this cold conflict. From cultural clashes to strategic tensions, here are 10 hidden reasons why the United States might secretly hate Canada. Stick with us through to the end. Some of these reasons will absolutely shock you. Cultural identity clash. Despite their proximity and shared language, Canada and the United States maintain vastly different cultural identities. Canadians take pride in being everything Americans are not: more inclusive, less aggressive, and more diplomatic. To many Americans, this constant comparison feels like an insult. The Canadian narrative often portrays itself as the morally superior alternative to American chaos, with better healthcare, less gun violence, and a cleaner global reputation. This quiet superiority complex isn't lost on the US. It breeds irritation. When Canadians boast about their values on the world stage, Americans can't help but feel criticized and undermined, even if the attacks aren't direct. This cultural divergence builds a wall of resentment, unspoken but ever-present, driving a wedge between the two countries. Economic competition in disguise. While the two nations are each other's largest trading partners, the United States often sees Canada not as a friend, but as a competitor dressed in a cozy flannel shirt. Canada's resource-rich economy competes directly with American industries, especially in energy, agriculture, and manufacturing. When Canadian oil flows more affordably or Canadian lumber prices undercut American sellers, it doesn't feel like a partnership, it feels like a threat. Add to this Canada's trade agreements with countries the US is at odds with, and the economic tension rises. Behind closed doors, American businesses and lobbyists push back hard against Canadian influence, seeing their northern neighbor as a silent saboteur in the race for economic dominance. The military freeloader narrative. America spends vast sums on defense, while Canada operates a relatively modest military. This difference fuels a long-standing narrative in U.S. political circles: Canada is a security freeloader. To many American policymakers, Canada benefits from the U.S. military shield without pulling its weight. Whenever NATO obligations arise, some Americans grumble that Canada's contributions are minimal. This perception creates deep resentment: the idea that the U.S. does the heavy lifting while Canada enjoys peace, safety, and moral high ground at a discount. It may not be entirely fair, but this view drives a sense of imbalance and irritation that never fully disappears. Canada's global popularity. Internationally, Canada is often seen as the kinder, gentler alternative to the U.S. While American foreign policy is criticized for aggression and interference, Canada is praised for diplomacy and peacekeeping. This contrast in global image stings. Americans, especially those involved in international relations, often feel overshadowed by Canada's "nice guy" brand. It's like standing next to a sibling who always gets the teacher's praise even if they're not working as hard. The international applause Canada receives can breed jealousy and discomfort in American corridors of power, especially when Canada uses its popularity to criticize U.S. actions. Environmental disagreements. When it comes to environmental policy, Canada and the U.S. often find themselves at odds. Canada pushes hard for international climate agreements, stricter emissions controls, and green energy transitions. In contrast, U.S. administrations, depending on who's in charge, sometimes resist these measures to protect industrial interests. Canadian criticism of America's environmental track record often feels like public shaming. American leaders have openly mocked Canada's environmental stance, portraying it as hypocritical or unrealistic. This tension over environmental values creates a quiet rivalry, a battle of priorities that turns into low-key disdain on both sides of the border. The Arctic Showdown. Few people realize how strategic the Arctic has become in global politics. Melting ice caps have opened new shipping lanes and revealed untapped oil and gas reserves. Both Canada and the US claim influence in this region, but they don't always agree on borders, strategy, or priorities. Canada insists on sovereignty over large swaths of the Arctic that the US considers international waters. This creates real geopolitical tension. What appears to be a quiet dispute could one day become a serious point of conflict. The US doesn't appreciate Canada's assertiveness here, especially when it challenges American control over future global trade routes. Border security frustrations. While America is obsessed with its southern border, the northern border with Canada is often overlooked, but that doesn't mean it's problem-free. U.S. authorities have long been concerned about lax Canadian immigration laws, fearing that potential threats could cross into America undetected. There's also frustration over Canada's reluctance to mirror U.S. border security practices. To many Americans, this makes Canada a weak link in homeland defense. Even when cooperation exists, mistrust simmers beneath the surface. The notion that the U.S. must watch Canada's immigration policies more closely sparks irritation and fuels suspicion about Canada's role in shared security. Political mockery and snobbery. American politics is a favorite punching bag in Canada, and it shows. From late-night comedy shows to dinner-table conversations, Canadians rarely hesitate to mock the U.S. for its political chaos, divisive elections, or extremist policies. This ridicule doesn't go unnoticed. Americans hear it, see it, and remember it. To be constantly portrayed as the unstable cousin by a country that sees itself as rational and refined sparks resentment. It's not just a joke, it's a jab that leaves bruises. Over time, this political mockery deepens the rift and makes many Americans view Canada with a mix of irritation and contempt. Healthcare envy and shame. Canada's universal healthcare system has become a symbol not just of Canadian pride, but of American failure. Every time a U.S. politician or activist references Canada's healthcare as a model, it triggers debate, defensiveness, and discomfort. For Americans stuck in a system plagued by high costs and complex bureaucracy, Canada represents what could be but isn't. This healthcare envy turns into resentment. Canada's success in this area becomes a sore spot that undermines American pride. Rather than admit admiration, many Americans choose bitterness, attacking Canadian healthcare or dismissing it altogether just to avoid confronting the flaws in their own system. The passive-aggressive neighbor syndrome. Finally, there's the psychological factor, the quiet, nagging annoyance of having a neighbor who is always watching, always judging, but never shouting. Canada plays the passive-aggressive card masterfully. It rarely engages in direct confrontation but frequently uses subtle diplomacy, indirect criticism, and moral positioning to make its point. To the U.S., this behavior feels like death by 1,000 polite paper cuts. It's not loud or brash, but it's persistent. Canada's ability to quietly undermine, to critique without direct insult, drives American frustration to the brink. In relationships, especially ones this close, passive aggression can often be more toxic than open hostility. So, is it fair to say the United States hates Canada? Maybe not in open declarations or political speeches, but beneath the surface, the tension is real. Resentment, rivalry, and national pride have turned this neighborly bond into a cold, quiet competition. The world sees them as allies, but the truth is far more complicated. As long as these two countries share a border, they'll share a relationship full of friction, contradiction, and yes, a touch of hate. If you found these insights eye-opening, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We've got more powerful stories coming your way every week. This is Infosphere, where the truth has no borders.